Every year, thousands of travelers make a decision that ends their holiday, or ends their life. Not because they were careless. Not because they were naive. But because they did not have accurate, current, specific information about where they were going before they went. In 2026, more than 20 countries carry the highest possible travel warning from the United States government, Level 4, Do Not Travel. The UK Foreign Office has its own equivalent list. The Global Peace Index has recorded the lowest global peacefulness in the history of the index. And in several of the countries on today's list, tourism infrastructure has not just declined, it has collapsed entirely. Today I am going to walk you through the 10 most dangerous countries for tourists in 2026, not to frighten you, but to give you the specific, honest, accurate information that could save your life or the life of someone you care about. For each country, I am going to explain exactly what makes it dangerous, what the specific risks to tourists are, what the government advisories say, and why the danger exists in the first place. Stay with me till the very end, because the last country on this list may be one you did not expect. Welcome to the channel. This video covers the 10 most dangerous countries for tourists in 2026 based on a composite assessment of multiple authoritative sources, the US State Department's Travel Advisory System, the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office Advisories, the 2026 Global Peace Index published by the Institute for Economics and Peace, the Riskline 2026 Risk Map, and Numbio's Crime Index data. We are focused specifically on tourist safety, the risks facing international visitors, not general geopolitical assessments. One important note before we begin, this video is informational. Nothing in this video should substitute for checking your own government's current, official travel advisory before making any travel decision. Advisory levels change. Situations evolve. Always verify current conditions through official channels before booking or traveling to any destination that has elevated risk levels. With that said, let us count down the 10 most dangerous countries for tourists in the world right now. Before the countdown, let me explain the system I am using to assess danger, because understanding the methodology makes the ranking meaningful. The US State Department's Travel Advisory System is the most widely referenced government travel warning system in the world. It has 4 levels. Level 1, exercise normal precautions. This is the baseline. The destination is considered safe for standard tourism with normal awareness. Level 2, exercise increased caution. There are elevated risks in certain areas or circumstances that travelers should be aware of. Level 3, reconsider travel. The risks are significant enough that the government advises travelers to carefully weigh whether their specific trip is necessary. Level 4, do not travel. This is the highest warning level. The government advises against all travel to this destination due to life-threatening risks including armed conflict, terrorism, civil unrest, kidnapping, or the complete absence of reliable emergency services. As of mid-2026, more than 20 countries hold Level 4 Do Not Travel advisories from the US government. The UK's equivalent advisory system uses similar language and its Do Not Travel designations largely overlap with the US list, though they are not identical. The critical practical implication of Level 4 advisory status that most travelers do not know: the vast majority of standard travel insurance policies explicitly exclude coverage for destinations under Do Not Travel advisories. If you travel to a Level 4 country and are injured, kidnapped, need medical evacuation, or die, your insurance company will likely not pay. And in many of these countries, US and UK embassies have suspended or severely limited operations, meaning your government may have very limited ability to help you even if you call for assistance. These are not bureaucratic warnings. They are life and death designations based on current security intelligence. Country 10, Haiti, gang control and complete state collapse. US State Department Advisory, Level 4, Do Not Travel primary risks: kidnapping, gang violence, civil unrest, collapse of emergency services. Haiti opens our countdown at number 10, and the situation in Haiti in 2026 represents one of the most complete collapses of state authority and tourist safety infrastructure of any country in the Western Hemisphere in living memory. For most of its modern history, Haiti was a challenging but accessible destination, the Caribbean's culturally richest and most historically significant nation, the site of the world's first successful slave revolution, and home to extraordinary art, music, and natural beauty. The Haiti that exists in 2026 is almost unrecognizable from that description. Gang control now extends over significant portions of Port-au-Prince and the surrounding regions. The Vive Ensemble Alliance, an umbrella coalition of gang networks, controls an estimated 85 to 90% of the capital city as of 2026. The Haitian National Police, already under-resourced and outgunned, has been overwhelmed. Government institutions have functionally collapsed in many areas. The Prime Minister operates under gang siege. And the civilian population, the Haitian people, who bear the greatest cost of this catastrophe, is caught between gang violence, cholera outbreaks, malnutrition, and the complete absence of functioning healthcare or emergency services in most of the country. For tourists, there is essentially no tourism infrastructure left to speak of in Haiti in 2026. Commercial flights to Port-au-Prince operate only intermittently. The roads between the capital and other destinations pass through gang-controlled checkpoints. Kidnapping for ransom targeting foreigners was already one of the most common crimes in Haiti before the full gang takeover. It has increased substantially since. The U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince operates with reduced staff and severely limited ability to assist American citizens in distress. The honest truth about Haiti in 2026 is that there is no version of tourist travel to this country that can be made safe. The risks are not manageable with precautions. The risks exist because the state has collapsed. Country 9, Myanmar, military junta, civil war, and landmines. U.S. State Department Advisory, Level 4, Do Not Travel Primary Risks, Armed Conflict, Political Detention, Landmines, Limited Healthcare. Myanmar, once one of Southeast Asia's most extraordinary and most rapidly growing tourist destinations, welcoming millions of visitors to the temples of Bagan, the floating villages of Inal Lake, and the colonial streets of Yangon, is in 2026 a country at war with itself. The military coup of February 2021 that removed the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi from power triggered what has become one of the most complex and brutal civil conflicts in Asia. Multiple resistance groups, collectively known as the People's Defense Force alongside established ethnic armed organizations, are engaged in armed conflict against the Tatmadaw military junta across much of the country. By 2026, significant portions of Myanmar, including major states bordering Thailand, India, and China, are active conflict zones. For tourists, the specific risks in Myanmar in 2026 are multiple and severe. Armed clashes between military forces and resistance groups occur with limited warning and in areas not traditionally associated with conflict. Landmines and unexploded ordnance have been documented across multiple regions, including areas that were formerly accessible to tourists. The military junta has detained foreign nationals for activities that would be entirely legal elsewhere, including photographing military facilities, participating in protests, or in some cases simply being present in areas of civil unrest. US, UK, and European embassies have issued specific warnings about wrongful detention risk for their citizens. Healthcare infrastructure in Myanmar was already severely limited in rural areas before the coup. 4 years of civil conflict have reduced it further. The military has specifically targeted clinics and hospitals used by civilians in conflict-affected areas. The experience that drew travelers to Myanmar, extraordinary Buddhist culture, stunning landscapes, genuine local warmth, is still present in the spirit of the Burmese people. But accessing it in 2026 means operating in an active war zone. The risk calculus is simply not compatible with tourism. Country 8, Somalia, the world's longest civil war continues. U.S. State Department Advisory, Level 4, Do Not Travel Primary Risks, Terrorism, Piracy, Kidnapping, Armed Conflict, No Functioning Government. Somalia has held a Level 4 Do Not Travel advisory from the U.S. State Department for longer than most of the other countries on this list, reflecting a conflict that has been ongoing in various forms since 1991 and shows no signs of resolution in 2026. The primary security threat in Somalia is Al-Shabaab, the Al-Qaeda-affiliated militant group that controls significant rural and semi-urban territory across much of southern and central Somalia. Al-Shabaab conducts regular bombings, assassinations, and attacks on government facilities, hotels, restaurants, and public spaces including in the capital Mogadishu. The group specifically targets locations frequented by foreigners and government officials. Multiple high-profile hotel attacks in Mogadishu over the past several years, including attacks on properties that were considered among the most secure available to foreign visitors, have demonstrated that Al-Shabaab retains significant operational capability even in the capital. Beyond Al-Shabaab, Somalia faces the additional security challenges of clan-based armed conflict in different regions, piracy in the Gulf of Aden, kidnapping of foreign nationals for ransom, and the complete absence of the kind of functioning state institutions that in other countries would provide basic emergency services, law enforcement response, and consular assistance to distressed travelers. The Somali government, recognized internationally and supported by an African Union mission, controls Mogadishu's government district and some key facilities. But its reach beyond these specific areas is genuinely limited. Traveling outside government-secured zones in Somalia in 2026 is not adventure travel. It is effectively operating in ungoverned, conflict-affected territory with minimal access to assistance of any kind. Country 7, South Sudan, the world's youngest country in crisis. U.S. State Department Advisory, Level 4, Do Not Travel Primary Risks, Armed Conflict, Ethnic Violence, Landmines, Kidnapping, Disease. South Sudan, which became the world's newest country in 2011 following a referendum on independence from Sudan, has experienced near-continuous armed conflict since 2013, just 2 years after independence. The conflict, rooted in ethnic and political tensions between the Dinka and Nuer communities and their political representatives, has created one of the world's most severe humanitarian crises and one of the most dangerous environments for any foreign national in the world. In 2026, South Sudan faces a renewed escalation of conflict. Armed clashes between government forces and armed opposition groups occur regularly across multiple states. The country has one of the lowest levels of road infrastructure of any nation in the world. Vast areas are accessible only by light aircraft during the dry season and effectively inaccessible during the rainy season, which makes emergency evacuation from remote areas extremely challenging even for well-resourced security contractors. Landmines from decades of conflict remain a hazard across multiple regions. Kidnapping of foreign nationals, including aid workers and journalists operating in the country with substantial security infrastructure, has occurred multiple times in recent years. Disease risks including malaria, cholera, and yellow fever are severe and the healthcare system is essentially non-functional in most of the country. The few facilities that exist are concentrated in Juba, the capital, and are already beyond capacity serving the civilian population. South Sudan's extraordinary wildlife, the Sud wetlands, the white-eared cob migration, the national parks that once promised to make it one of Africa's great safari destinations, remains an extraordinary natural inheritance of the country. But accessing it in 2026 comes at risks that no responsible travel recommendation can justify. Country 6, Afghanistan, 5 years under Taliban rule. U.S. State Department Advisory, Level 4, Do Not Travel Primary Risks, Terrorism, Taliban detention, complete absence of consular services, gender-based persecution. Afghanistan in 2026 is 5 years into Taliban governance following the U.S. military withdrawal of August 2021, and it remains one of the most dangerous countries in the world for any foreign national to enter, for reasons that are simultaneously obvious and specific. The Taliban government is not internationally recognized by any Western country. The U.S. Embassy in Kabul has been closed since the withdrawal. The UK, Canadian, Australian, and European embassies have similarly suspended operations. This means that if you are a Western national traveling in Afghanistan and something goes wrong, you are injured, detained, robbed, or worse, there is functionally no government infrastructure that can advocate for you, negotiate on your behalf, or assist with evacuation. You are entirely on your own. Islamic State Khorasan Province, ISK, the Afghanistan-based affiliate of ISIS, continues to carry out terrorist attacks in Afghanistan including against civilian targets, mosques, schools, and hospitals. These attacks target both the Taliban government and civilian populations. The Taliban themselves have detained foreign nationals, including journalists and NGO workers, without charges, without legal process, and without notification to their governments or families. 4 female travelers specifically, Afghanistan under Taliban governance represents an environment of systematic persecution. Women are prohibited from education beyond 6th grade, banned from most forms of employment, required to be accompanied by a male guardian in public, and prohibited from showing their face in public spaces. Female foreign nationals entering Afghanistan are expected to comply with these restrictions. The implications for female travelers are total and non-negotiable. The Afghanistan that existed before 2021, with its extraordinary landscape, its ancient Silk Road history, its Hazara culture, its Buddhist archaeological heritage in Bamyan, does not exist in a form accessible to international tourists in 2026. The country exists. The history exists. But the conditions for accessing them safely do not. Country 5, Sudan. 2 years of catastrophic war. U.S. State Department Advisory, Level 4, Do Not Travel Primary Risks, Active Armed Conflict, Aerial Bombardment, Ethnic Cleansing, Famine. Sudan entered a catastrophic civil war in April 2023 when fighting broke out between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, a paramilitary group formerly allied with the SAF. By 2026, this conflict has become one of the worst humanitarian catastrophes in the world. The United Nations has described the situation in Darfur specifically as genocide. The war has displaced approximately 8 million people internally and created one of the world's largest refugee crises. Famine conditions have been declared in multiple regions. Khartoum, Sudan's capital, which was developing a modest tourism and expatriate infrastructure before 2023, has been the site of sustained combat, aerial bombardment, and systematic destruction of civilian infrastructure. Much of the city has been damaged or destroyed. Basic services, electricity, water, telecommunications, are unreliable or absent across large areas. For any foreign national entering Sudan in 2026, the risks are existential in the most literal sense. Active aerial bombing campaigns, artillery fire, ground combat, and the presence of armed irregular forces with no accountability for their actions toward civilians create an environment where physical safety cannot be managed through any standard travel security protocol. U.S. embassy operations in Sudan were suspended in April 2023 and have not been restored. No Western government has meaningful diplomatic presence in Sudan in 2026. Sudan's archaeological heritage, the ancient Nubian pyramids of Meroe, the temples of Karima, the historic sites along the Nile, represents one of the most underappreciated archaeological treasures in the world. In better times, it was a genuinely rewarding destination for adventurous travelers. In 2026, none of that history justifies the risk of entering the country. Country 4, Syria, 12 years of war, new fragility. U.S. State Department Advisory, Level 4, Do Not Travel Primary Risks, Terrorism, Active Conflict Zones, Kidnapping, Unexploded Ordnance. Syria's situation in 2026 is both better and more complicated than it was a few years ago. The fall of Bashar al-Assad's government in December 2024 ended one chapter of the Syrian civil war, but it did not end Syria's danger to tourists. The country that emerges from 12 years of war is a fractured territory of multiple armed groups, devastated infrastructure, massive unexploded ordnance contamination, and ongoing security threats from multiple directions simultaneously. Islamic State, ISIS, retains a presence and operational capability in parts of Syria, particularly in the eastern desert regions. Turkish military operations continue in northern Syria. Various armed factions control different portions of the country with different rules, different levels of predictability, and different attitudes toward foreign nationals. The government that took power after Assad's fall is still consolidating control, and the security environment outside Damascus remains fluid and dangerous. Syria's historical heritage, Palmyra's extraordinary Roman ruins, the ancient city of Aleppo, the Krak des Chevaliers Crusader Castle, Damascus's ancient old city, suffered devastating damage during the war. Some sites have been partially restored or stabilized. But accessing them requires traveling through a country saturated with unexploded ordnance, fragmented authority, and ongoing security risks that no civilian tourist infrastructure is yet equipped to manage safely. Syria will one day be a travel destination again. The culture, the history, the food, the people who have survived extraordinary suffering deserve to be witnessed and celebrated by the world. But 2026 is not that day. Country 3, Yemen, the world's worst humanitarian crisis. U.S. State Department Advisory, Level 4, Do Not Travel Primary Risks, Active Armed Conflict, Houthi Control, Aerial Bombardment, Famine, Kidnapping. Yemen holds the grim distinction of being simultaneously one of the world's most dangerous countries and the site of what the United Nations has described as the world's worst humanitarian crisis. The civil war between the internationally recognized Yemeni government, backed by a Saudi-led coalition, and the Houthi movement, which controls significant territory including the capital Sana'a, has been ongoing since 2015. In 2026, the Houthi movement has expanded its international profile significantly through its attacks on Red Sea shipping, a campaign that has disrupted global maritime trade and drawn direct military responses from the United States and United Kingdom. These developments have not reduced the danger within Yemen's borders, they have increased international military involvement in the vicinity of the country and created additional security complexity. For any tourist contemplating Yemen in 2026, the country has no functioning tourism infrastructure whatsoever. There are no tourist visas being issued through any standard consular process. Sana'a International Airport has operated only intermittently through UN humanitarian airlift agreements. The road network has been extensively damaged by years of aerial bombardment and ground combat. Healthcare has collapsed. Yemen has experienced some of the worst cholera and COVID outbreaks of any country in the world due to the destruction of water and health infrastructure. Kidnapping of foreigners has occurred multiple times. Yemen's extraordinary ancient heritage, the walled city of Shabam, the multi-story mud brick skyscrapers of Hadramaut, the island of Socotra with its alien dragon blood trees, is among the most remarkable in the entire world. It deserves to be seen and celebrated. The timing for doing so safely is not 2026. Country 2, Russia, an active war state. U.S. State Department Advisory, Level 4, Do Not Travel UK Foreign Office Advisory, Do Not Travel Primary Risks, Wrongful Detention, Active War, Terrorism, Arbitrary Law Enforcement. Russia's inclusion at number 2 on this list requires specific explanation, because Russia is not a failed state, does not have collapsed infrastructure, and in many ways presents a very different kind of danger from the conflict zones dominating the rest of this list. The danger Russia presents to tourists is of a particular and specific nature. The U.S. State Department's Level 4 advisory for Russia, maintained throughout 2025 and 2026, cites 3 primary concerns for foreign nationals. First, wrongful detention. Russia has detained foreign nationals, including American citizens, on charges that in many cases appear designed to create leverage for diplomatic prisoner exchanges rather than to address genuine criminal conduct. The cases of Paul Whelan, Evan Gershkovich, and Mark Fogel, all detained in Russia on what Western governments characterized as politically motivated charges, established a pattern that the U.S. government takes very seriously. Second, the ongoing war in Ukraine creates military risk in areas near the Russian border with Ukraine, including missile and drone activity that has affected Russian territory itself. Third, Russia's laws around activities that are routine in most countries, photographing certain buildings, discussing the war in Ukraine, LGBT+ expression, journalism, carry criminal penalties that foreign visitors are not protected from regardless of their home country standards. The suspension of most commercial flights between Russia and Western countries following the Ukraine invasion has also severely limited options for both entry and emergency evacuation for Western nationals. Russia remains an extraordinary civilization with profound cultural, artistic, and historical contributions to humanity. The Hermitage, the Bolshoi, the Moscow Kremlin, the Trans-Siberian Railway, these are genuine global treasures. But accessing them in 2026 requires accepting a risk profile of detention, of being caught in military infrastructure targeting, of operating in a country whose government has demonstrated willingness to use foreign nationals as diplomatic leverage, that the governments of most Western and many non-Western countries explicitly advise their citizens not to accept. Country 1. Active conflict zones: Ukraine, Iraq, Libya, and North Korea. For our final position, rather than selecting a single country for the most dangerous designation, I want to acknowledge 4 countries that compete for this position based on different types of danger and that are all under the highest possible travel warnings in 2026. Ukraine. Ukraine presents the most geographically concentrated war in Europe since the Second World War. Russian missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian cities, including Kiev, Kharkiv, Odessa, and Dnipro, occur with regularity. The front lines shift. Infrastructure attacks targeting power grids, water systems, and civilian residential areas are a documented pattern of the Russian military campaign. Any foreign national in Ukraine in 2026 is in proximity to an active war zone. The Ukrainian government and people are extraordinary in their resilience and their welcome of international support and solidarity, but the physical danger to civilians on Ukrainian soil is real and ongoing. Iraq. Iraq carries a Level 4 Do Not Travel advisory based on multiple ongoing security threats, IS-ISIS activity in remote and rural areas, militia violence including attacks targeting facilities associated with Western nations, and kidnapping of foreign nationals. The Kurdistan region of Iraq operates under a separate Level 3 advisory reflecting its different security environment, but the country overall cannot be recommended for tourist travel in 2026. Libya. Libya has had no functioning central government since the collapse of the Gaddafi regime in 2011 and has since been divided between competing governments, armed militias, and foreign military interventions from multiple external actors. The eastern and western portions of the country are controlled by different authorities. Crime targeting foreigners, armed militia activity, and the absence of any reliable emergency services make Libya exceptionally dangerous for any foreign visitor. North Korea. North Korea is a unique category of dangerous. The physical violence risk from other actors is lower than in active war zones. The danger in North Korea is of a different character entirely: totalitarian state control, the complete absence of independent legal recourse if detained, and the documented pattern of detaining foreign nationals including on charges of activities that are entirely legal in every other country in the world. Americans are explicitly barred from traveling to North Korea under U.S. law. For nationals of other countries, any travel occurs in a state where every movement is controlled, every interaction is monitored, and the consequences of any perceived violation, or any fabricated charge, include indefinite detention in conditions that represent a genuine threat to life. Let me close with the most important safety practice for any traveler going anywhere in the world, not just the countries on today's list. Before booking any international trip, check your own government's official travel advisory for your destination. In the US this is travel.state.gov. In the UK it is gov.uk/foreign-travel-advice. In Canada it is travel.gc.ca. In Australia it is esmartraveller.gov.au. These sites are updated regularly and reflect current intelligence about safety conditions. They are free, official, and the most reliable source available. Register your travel with your government's traveler registration program before you go. In the US this is the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, STEP, at step.state.gov. This allows your embassy to contact you in an emergency and facilitates evacuation assistance if needed. Ensure your travel insurance explicitly covers the destination you are visiting and the activities you plan to do. Read the exclusions. If your destination has a Level 3 or Level 4 advisory, call your insurer before you go and confirm exactly what is and is not covered. Do not assume. Share your itinerary with someone you trust who remains at home. Regular check-in schedules, agreed in advance, mean that if contact is broken, someone knows quickly and can take appropriate action. And that is your complete guide to the 10 most dangerous countries for tourists in 2026, and the specific reasons why each one carries that designation. Haiti's gang collapse. Myanmar's civil war. Somalia's long-running catastrophe. South Sudan's renewed conflict. Afghanistan's Taliban isolation. Sudan's genocide. Syria's fragile post-war reality. Yemen's humanitarian collapse. Russia's wrongful detention risk. And the multiple active conflict zones competing for the most dangerous designation on Earth. Travel is one of the most life-affirming things a human being can do. Seeing the world, meeting people, experiencing cultures different from your own, these experiences change who we are in the most profound and permanent ways. This video exists not to discourage that impulse but to ensure that it is exercised with accurate information. The world is largely safe for travelers who research carefully, follow official guidance, and make thoughtful decisions. The countries on today's list are the exceptions, the places where the risk is currently so severe that no travel purpose is worth the specific dangers present right now. If this video helped you understand the current global safety landscape, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who travels internationally. Subscribe for more global mobility and travel safety content. And drop a comment telling me if you were surprised by any country on this list. I read every single comment. See you in the next video.